All right, 8:33 this morning on Richmond's Morning News. It's News Radio WRVA. My name is Rich Herrera. Thanks for joining us this morning. All right, boy, I got a lot of questions for Governor Jim Gilmore, former U.S. ambassador as well. He joins us on Thursdays, and we get his point of view on a lot of different things. And Governor, boy, do I need you today. Governor Gilmore, can you hear me? I think we have him in there. All right, Governor, just if you move just a bit, I think we're getting a little
How about
spotty.
now?
There you go. Now I got you.
How about now? You got me, right?
I got you.
Good.
Because I need you today, sir.
Well, I'll bet you do. Well, go ahead and ask your question because I've been so weak and I'm ready to talk to your listeners.
Okay, let's talk about Iran. It seems to me that we have two, and I'm going to ask you to put on your ambassador hat for this. It seems like we have two different things that are trying to go on at the same time. Number one, we see that led by J.D. Vance, they're trying desperately for diplomacy to give that a chance. And every time the Iranians seem like they show up to the table and they're making concessions and they're making nice at the negotiating tables, we seem to let our guard down and go, okay, we're going to go down this path. I think we're going to get to negotiate and we're going to get to end this thing through diplomacy. And then they change their mind, and then we turn back and hammer them again. Where do you see us right now?
Well, first of all, I wrote an op-ed piece this past week. It was published Monday in the Washington Times, an op-ed. And if any of your listeners would like to get a copy of that, if you'll send me your email address to ambassador@gmail.com, I'll make sure that the staff sends you a copy of that op-ed. And what I basically said in my opinion piece is that it's got to be somewhat war that's going on.
Sir, let me interrupt you. Sir, let me interrupt you for just a second. I can get you to take a step to the left a little bit because we're fading in and out.
Still losing me. Okay,
no, I got you. That's a lot stronger. Okay, go ahead. Start. If you start again, if you start with your email address, because I think it's amazing that people can email you. So let people know how they can get your op-ed.
Yeah, GilmoreAmbassador@gmail.com. Send me a request, and I'll send you a copy of the op-ed if you haven't gotten to see it already. And in the op-ed, I basically said, look, we got to get more countries on our side on this thing and put a little more political weight behind against Iran as opposed to just bombing. Now, you've reported this morning, just a few minutes ago, that the U.S. military has said, okay, we're just going to escalate and increase the bombing. And my position is, if that works, great. If Iran can be brought to heel by bombing them, fine. But I don't believe it. And it seems to me that there are more things that we can do. And as a politician, I believe that this is a moment to put more political force behind the Westerns and against Iran by convening a global conference to address this. So there's some other people that are publishing some additional op-eds, but people are trying to find their way out of this back and forth. So, Rich, I want to say a couple of things for just a minute, if correctly.
Absolutely.
You know, your listeners might want to write this down and make a little list, because I've been looking at it. You know, if Ukraine attacked Iran in the Caspian Sea because they were sending munitions and supplies to Russia. The U.S. attacked militias in Iraq. The Saudis attacked Iran.
Oh, I'm losing you again, sir.
Military bases in Jordan. China is sending man pads, according to your most recent report. That's coming through Pakistan, which is the same time is trying to be a peacemaker. North Korea is getting ready to send 30,000 troops to Ukraine. Putin is helping Iran target U.S. bases. The Russians are doing that. The Houthis have now closed the Red Sea, or at least are threatening the Red Sea. There are dangers in Mali. Trump has warned Xi to not send man pads. He's doing it anyway. The Saudis are dealing with all this as well. And finally, this morning, Egypt has now been attacked this morning near the Suez Canal, which is another one of those waterway choke points in the Middle East. Now, why am I saying all that? This thing is growing out of control. And I've been talking about this for years with respect to Ukraine, and successfully the Ukrainians have controlled that war against Russia. But the Middle East thing is beginning to spread and spread and spread. And, I've often said that I think that we're in a global war. We ought to be glad right now that the Pacific is still relatively quiet, but Europe and the Middle East are in flames, and it's getting more and more attacks back and forth, Rich.
Okay, so let's compare and contrast the two. in Ukraine, you have Western European countries supporting them. And I think that's why Ukraine, for the most part, wasn't overrun in 48 hours the way that Putin thought. And now we see this, and we see actually desperation out of Putin sending missile attacks at Kiev. And we see that it's eroding. It's going the wrong way for Putin. If the United States had that kind of help and coalition against Iran, what do you think would be the immediate and short term versus the long term changes and how that conflict is going?
Well, first of all, I've been talking about the Ukrainian war and the Russian-Ukrainian war ever since I got back from Vienna on this radio program for years. But now I think with some confidence we can see that Ukraine is going to win that war. They have transformed warfare and have been successful. The Russians have not. And their energy facilities all across Russia now are under attack. Now there are structures like their Amazon type of companies are under attack, which means it's more difficult for Russians to order cheap stuff. So Russia is beginning to feel it now, and they can no longer simply commit their war crimes with impunity. With respect to the Middle East, this thing is just ongoing. Right now, America has no theory other than more violent attacks and bombing. That's what your report just told people a minute ago. Okay, if that works, it's okay with me. I'd love to see a case where American military power can just crush Iran and bring about a capitulation. But that ain't what's going on right now. The Ukrainians have said, we're going to run the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in my op-ed, we got some flame back when people said, why are you talking about Hormuz instead of talking about their nuclear program? And the answer is because their nuclear program isn't going forward right now, and the president says he can watch that and surveil that. But what is out of control is their control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a violation of the international law of navigation. And basically, my op-ed says it's time to get back to international law here because Iran's in violation of international law. Let's get the people of the world behind international law, which, by the way, is not exactly what America's been doing. So there's a lot of challenges ahead here. I think that this thing is not going to the bargaining table immediately because Iran is relentless in their determination to control the Strait of Hormuz and the energy ships moving in and out of there.
Do you see, and I might get in trouble for asking this, but I want to make sure I try to say this clearly. I see Ukraine as fighting for their lives. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That's why they're going to win.
Okay.
And it's one of the reasons.
Can we say the same thing about Iran? I don't agree with their point of view or anything they do. I think it's a theocracy. I think they have their thumb on the people. It's the antithesis of freedom. But are they fighting existentially for their way of life as well?
Well, they got attacked, and the effort there was to completely decapitate their government and make regime change, which did not work. So I think at this point, the regime there, which is the government of Iran, certainly is fighting for its life. The best outcome would be to have a friendly government in Iran. I think that's now probably not going to happen. And so what we're really fighting for at this point is the freedom of navigation. I remind you what I just said. The straits are under control because of the threats of Iran, and that cannot be permitted by the West or the United States. That's really what I think that's what we're fighting over at this point. That also talks about the straits in the Red Sea. By the way, there are straits in Southeast Asia that are controlling energy movement and goods movement and other places. So this freedom of navigation at this point is the most important thing people are fighting over, Rich.
Well, and then and that leads to my other point with Iran is they're not signatories to a lot of these international agreements. They're not signatories towards the freedom of navigation. So for them, they're like, I don't have to do anything. I didn't sign anything. I can break any laws I want because I don't recognize any of these. And that's why it gets to be kind of spinning your wheels if you want to negotiate them and saying, hey, you have to live up to international laws. They don't sign on to them. So why would we expect them to live up to these?
Well, they don't get to be renegades just because they didn't sign a treaty. The fact is it's customary international law on the freedom of navigation, and there's the law of the sea and the law and the treaties and protocols on navigation. if that is permitted because a country says, well, we didn't sign that, we just hold the whole world at hostage, that can't be permitted in the modern world. Look, there's lots going on here. I do not downplay my constant theme about the war in Europe. I believe it is the pivot. But meanwhile, we're now in a shooting war that's taking in, as I pointed out, 8 or 9 countries in the Middle East. And if Iraq with their militias and Egypt with its straight Suez Canal get involved, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we have unleashed here. I suggest this. If the U.S. wants to engage its military completely and move forward on this, I support that because that's the only thing we got right now. My op-ed is to say, add something to your hand, add some diplomatic powers, not going and begging on hands and knees to these people for a negotiation, which they're not going to give you. Bring some more countries into the world, into this against the Iranians. And, you know, everybody's got a stake on moving that oil rich.
Right. And that's where I was going to go back to that, is that's the point of a lot of this is, you know what, the United States, again, all of our oil goes into a global market. We've got some of the best oil in the whole wide world. We don't have refineries that can turn that into gasoline. The sweet crude we get out of Texas, we got to ship out because all of our oil refineries, and we haven't built any in the last 50, 75 years, they're only able to process what we get from the Middle East and Venezuela, the dirty sulfur oil. They get a bigger profit out of it. But even if we wanted to just be domestic in our oil production, we don't have the refineries to refine that oil.
Well, that's right, although that can come online. But the fact is that oil is a global marketplace, and that takes into consideration Texas and American crude, and it takes into expectation of international oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz and worldwide other sources as well. That creates a price, and that price is reflected down the street from my listeners at their pump because they have to react to what the global price of oil is. The Middle East war has disrupted all that. And that's why we don't have $3 gas anymore. We have $4.50 and $5 gas.
All right.
So, look, there's a lot going on here, Rich. But I'm just warning your listeners they better buckle up because this thing is getting bigger and bigger.
All right. I want to ask you about Ukraine attacking an Iranian ship, and that scared the heck out of me. So we'll do that coming up at 9:03. We're talking with Ambassador and Governor Jim Gilmore, our guest here on News Radio WRVA. Quick reminder: our golf tournament's coming up. We're looking for foursomes. We're raising money for